This lessons we are going to take a look on the creating overloaded method. Create another type of methods that use optional parameter. So it means when you call the method, you can pass some of the parameter, you can skip it. So it means you don't have to pass that parameter when you call the functions, and it will not generate an error. You can call the method using the name arguments and then use the out, okay, the keywords out to use the output parameter. Overloaded method is quite straightforward. You can create a method that can accept multiple type of parameter. Okay, for example, I want to create a merge method. Okay, for example, so if the value that is being passed is integer a and integer b, for example, so if the merge method is being called, if it pass integer a and integer b, it will plus integer a plus integer b and return the value, for example. Okay, so that kind of thing. So and then if it pass a string, it will merge the string together, okay, with the space in between, for example. So this is what we call overloaded method. So you create the exact same method. It's just that the method can be called by different type of parameter. Okay? Sometimes you need that kind of, even in the built-in method, they have a couple of methods that have this kind of ability. Yeah. So it means you can call the method, yeah, and then you can pass different type of value inside the bracket, inside the parameter. Yeah. You can pass different type of arguments. Now, for example, yeah, so you create a method called stop service. It doesn't pass any parameter. It doesn't return anything either. Yeah, and whatever the actions is. Okay, you can create. This is the exact same method. It's just that this method also accept a string. Okay, so this is what it means. So you can create a method that can accept multiple types of parameter. So there's another options. Maybe you want to create you want to make sure this method also can accept an integer. Yeah. Now creating method that use optional parameter. Okay, so it's quite straightforward. If you want to create a parameter that is optional, put the value on that optional parameter. Okay, but there is another rule that you have to follow. Always put the mandatory parameter first. Okay, so for example, you create a method called stop service. Okay, and then in the bracket, you see, so this is the mandatory parameter because there's no other options of value. So it means if anybody call this method or invoke this method, it need to pass a boolean. Okay, and then the next parameter, service name, have a default value, which is null. So it means when you call this stop service, you have to pass this argument into this parameter. But this parameter have an options to be left blank. Okay? And you also create a service ID parameter that an integer value, and it has the default value of 1. Yeah. You cannot, okay, this is the wrong way. You cannot do this. You cannot put string service name equal to null first over here and then comma, bool for stop. No, it doesn't work. Okay. So it has to be whatever the mandatory parameter first, comma, whatever other mandatory parameter, if there's any. And then the subsequent one, you can put any non-mandatory parameter. Okay, or in other words, optional parameter. Now, so to satisfy the parameters in sequence, okay, you create a variable, let's say, called for stop, which is a boolean true. Okay, so you call the stop service. Okay, remember it needs at least one mandatory parameter, so you pass this mandatory parameter. Okay, pass an argument for this parameter, yeah, which is a true. Or Okay, you can create another variable that says service name. Okay, and it consists of whatever string here. So it's taken from the fourth coffee sales service, and whatever the value of this put into service name, I assume it's a string. Okay, and you call the method stop service. Okay, pass this boolean. Okay, and then pass this string. So it's basically quite straightforward. Yeah, you can create a typical method, or you can create method that can be called with different types of parameter. You can create a method with optional parameter. Yeah? Now, you can also call the method by using the name argument. Okay? You specify the parameter by name. Okay? Supply the arguments in the sequence that differs from the method signature. You can do that. Okay? For example, this one, you see, you're supposed to pass a boolean, a string, an integer. Okay, so let's say you want to pass only boolean and service ID. Okay, I don't want to pass this any string value. I want to leave it as now. Okay, so what you can do is you can type the name of the parameter, okay, colon the value that you want to pass. So it means you tell the Visual Studio or C# compiler specifically the parameter service ID, the value that I'm going to pass is 1. Yeah. So this is how you call the method using the name argument. Yeah. So what it means in the previous slide is you call the parameter name with the parameter name, okay, because it's not in sequence. That's all. Now you can use the out keywords. Okay, for example, okay, you create a method that return a boolean value, and it has to pass. You have to pass the parameter string. Okay, it will be stored in the variable called service name, and another string status message, but it will be an output. Yeah. So you have to provide the variable for the argument when you call the method. Okay, so you set up a variable. Okay, for the status message, for example, is an empty string. Another variable, whatever the name of the variable. Okay, is the is service online, and then pass a string and pass another string. Okay, so pass another string. Yeah, but you need to write down out, and then the name of the variable that store a string. Yeah. So you call this method, pass a string and another string, but it's an output. Before I continue, any questions for the method? Unfortunately, in this slide, they didn't mention something that is quite cool that you are going to do in the lab later on. Okay, so what you can do is actually in Visual Studio, you can highlight the block of code that you think you are using it repeatedly. You just highlight it. You can actually export it as the method. Yeah. So for example, oh yeah, I haven't started the lab because by the way, Victor, have you managed to fix the issues for you can have it? Okay, that's good, because I'm going to log in now. Okay, because if I log in now, you will lost connections to the lab. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, let me. Okay, it doesn't allow me to log in. Maybe you're logging in. Okay, I'm going to try again. Yeah. Let's try again. Hopefully this time it does. There you go. Yeah. You might be kicked out from the lab because only one can run at a time. Yeah. Are you okay? Once I launch, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I just cancel this one. You still have it? No, I cancelled it. Sorry. Uh-oh. Are you in the middle of doing the lab? Sorry. Ah, okay. Ah, okay. What you can do, you can open the solutions. For example, you already completed module 1 and you, sorry, exercise 1 and exercise 2, and you are doing exercise 3. So you can open the starter file. Whatever you have done module 1, sorry, exercise 1 and exercise 2 actually is the same. Yeah. So they just in sequence. Your exercise is actually in sequence. They ask you to open the starter file, but it's actually that file is exactly the same with whatever that you did in the previous exercise. Okay, so for example, you open exercise 2 starter file. It's actually whatever you have done in lab 1, exercise 1. Okay, it's exactly the same. Yeah. So you can catch up by opening up the starter file for the next module. Yeah. Is it okay? Do you got what I mean? What I mean is, there are, for example, there are 3 exercises. Yeah, exercise 1, exercise 2, exercise 3. Yeah. So let's say you already completed exercise 1. Yep. So when you open exercise 2 starter file, it's actually the solutions of your exercise 1. Yeah, it's a continuing. Yeah, exercise 1, exercise 2, exercise 3 is actually continuous. So you don't even have to open the starter file. You can actually continue with the lab if you want. Yeah. So anyway, or another options is you can open the solutions folder. Yeah. So for example, you already completed exercise 1. Okay, you can go to solutions folder of exercise 1. Okay, that's the end result of that exercise. Okay, anyway, going to okay. So I'm going to log in. Okay, so maybe I'll show you maybe soon. Maybe I finish this slide first, and then I stop the recording, and then we can see some example. Okay, and that example you're going to see in your lab as well. Yeah. Now, handling the exceptions. Okay, so exceptions is usually there's a block of code that you want to know if there's any error occur. So if there's an error occur, you want to catch the error and display the error. Okay, to display and what kind of error is this. So you can handle those kind of error using the try catch error handling. Yeah. Sometimes you can use try catch finally. Yeah. I'm going to explain each of the block one by one. Yeah. So exceptions is quite straightforward. So any indications of error, okay, is an exception. Now, .NET Framework provides many classes that you can use, okay, in the using. So exceptions, system exceptions, applications exceptions, and so on. Okay, null reference, file not found, serializations. So you can add these classes to handle the exceptions. Or you can simply use the try catch error handling. Okay, the good thing about added these classes, you can check exactly what is the error. Okay, so for example, you're playing with the file in your coding. In your code, you create a code that open a file and make changes and save the file as different name, for example. So you can use this kind of file not found exceptions. Now, so let's take a look on the try catch error handling. I like this one. Sometimes I just go to a specific block of code that I want to make sure there's no error, okay, or I want to catch any error. I just simply type try on it. Okay, so this is my block of code, for example. Syntax 1, syntax 2, syntax 3, and so on. Okay, so a long syntax, and I'm very proud creating this code. Okay, I want to try I want to catch any error. Okay, and because I want to write it in the log file, for example, if there's an error occur, I want to write in the log file, okay, or in a file, or whatever the reason is. So try catch is very easy to use. All you need to do, just type try, open bracket, close bracket, put any code that you want to catch an exceptions. Okay, you want to catch the exceptions for that block of code. Put it in between the try error handling. Yep. After try, always come catch. Okay. The handy thing about this is it will never go to catch if there's no error. Okay. So if we run my code as per usual, nothing changed. The only change that happens if I put try catch error handling is it will go to the catch block of code only if there's an error in my code inside the try. Yeah. Okay, so try catch. Okay. So under the catch here, you can specify a specific error that you want to catch. Okay. So catch, I want to catch any null reference exceptions. Okay. Instantiate it as the variable ex. Okay, so after you catch these exceptions, what do you want to do? For example, you want to write in the message block saying that it's empty, okay, or this is a null reference or something. Okay, so whatever that you want to write, if it catch any null reference exceptions. Okay, so you can put any block of code. Okay, if my code here have any error, it will go to the catch, and if we do any actions inside. Yeah. So if there are more than one exceptions that you want to catch, you just simply type a couple of catch. Okay. So catch whatever exceptions. Okay. So if you don't have any specific exceptions that you want to catch, any error, you just type exceptions ex. Okay. So it means any error. Okay. This is what I'm going to do. Okay. I just write. I just pop up with a message box, let's say, mentions that, oh, there is an error in your code. It's going to be copied into the log file, and then some coding to write down what is the severity of the error and so on. Yeah, for example. Now, finally is optional. Okay, so finally block of code is if there is whether there is any error or no error. Okay, it will go to the code finally. Okay, so it means, so let's say I have a block of code in the try and there is an error. Okay, so try, and then I put, and then there's an error, so it will catch the error and break. That's the bad thing about the try catch error handling. So if you don't want it to just break, you want to write a certain code even though there's an error, you put those code inside the finally. Okay, so this, whatever that you put in the finally, whether it catch any exceptions or not, it will always run. Yeah, so that is try catch finally. Yeah, you can throw an exceptions. Yeah, so this one is usually to test. Use the throw keyword to throw a new exceptions. Yeah, so for example, in if it catch any exceptions, I want to throw the exceptions and then write something. Yeah, so this is the example. You create a variable called ex. Okay, and it is the new object for the null reference exceptions. Okay, and it pass up. Sorry, this has the string. The name parameter is null. Okay, and I want to test it. I just throw these exceptions. Okay, so if we throw whatever exceptions, okay, that I created, so it means there's an error, there's error or no error, I just throw an exceptions. So it means your code doesn't have an error, I just throw an exceptions. Okay, So this is sometimes I use it to test something. Okay, so for example, I want to test my finally. So in my finally, I always write if there's an error, I write it in the log file, for example. Okay, or whatever is in the finally code. I want to test this finally, I purposely throw an exception. Yeah. So you can use the throw keywords to rethrow an existing exceptions. Yeah. So for example, catch any exceptions. Okay. And you just throw the same exceptions again. Okay. So if you want to do that, you don't even have to create this. Just type throw. Yeah. So throw keywords is usually used for testing purposes. Okay. Now monitoring the applications. So you can use the logging and tracing, or applications profiling, or performance counter. Performance counter looks like it can be used for anything. Yeah. So performance counter is very easy to use. Yeah. So in this performance counter, you just go to the user define, new data collector set, put the name, okay. Yeah. Okay, so you can scroll down to your .NET, okay, and check what do you want to what do you want to monitor. Yeah, is it the data, is it the exceptions? Okay. So let's take a look on the logging and tracing. Okay, so the logging provides informations to either the normal user or the administrator. Okay, so one of the very commonly used log file is the Windows event log, which is inside the event viewer. Okay, so this is the one that is most commonly used by any administrator. Yep, you can even filter what kind of event that you want to monitor. Let's say I want to monitor anything to do with the .NET. Okay, so you can filter it from here. Or any applications. So you can go to Windows log, go to applications. Yeah, check. Yeah. Usually log file can be overwhelmed. So what you can do is you can filter the current log and just show the warning and critical and only critical and error. Let's say too many, so I only want to check any critical and error. Okay, there you go. Yep. So what applications? Okay, what is the event ID? Okay, what is the details? Yep. So you can also choose if you catch an exceptions, for example, instead of copying to a certain log file, you can save it into a text file, for example. Yeah. Tracing, it provides informations for us as a developer. Okay. So you usually find it in the Visual Studio output window. Okay. So you can also save the tracing. Okay. Tracing destinations. You can customize the tracing destinations as well. Now, applications profiling. You can create and run the performance sessions and then analyze any profiling report. Okay, revise your code and repeat. Okay, so you can take a look on one of the lab later on. If I remember correctly, the last lab would be doing your applications profiling. Now, performance counter, okay, is the one that I showed you just now. You can check the performance of your server, for example, okay, by checking the CPU, the memories, the RAM, okay, the speed of the RAM, speed of the network, and so on. Yeah. So specify the name, okay, for the counter. Okay, you can specify some help text. Okay, so you can also create the base performance counter type. So base performance counter type, usually you save it when everything works okay, works fine. Okay, you can save it as a base performance. So you can update the custom performance counter in coding. So if you're interested, you can even modify performance counter in your code. Okay, so you can create the another counter. Okay, so this is the built-in counter in the performance monitoring. Okay, you can add. Okay, so these are all the counter, the built-in counter. So as a developer, you can create your own counter to monitor the new applications that you created, for example. Okay, so you can select that counter that you created and then click OK. So to go to the performance monitoring, you can search using the search button, or you just type perfmon.exe on the run. Okay, so yeah, so it's the same. Okay, so these are the 3 exercises that you are going to do. Okay, it's on exercise 1. So there is something called refactoring. Okay, this is the one that I mentioned. You can highlight a chunk or a block of code, and then you can refactor it. Okay, so you can refactor it as another a method, for example. Okay. This exercise 1 is quite interesting because they ask you the very first part of the exercise, they ask you to copy and paste, okay, from one part to another. Okay, maybe you're questioning yourself why the exercise asks you to copy and paste. There must be something better. That's the purpose of the exercise. Okay, they ask you copy and paste, and then later on they ask you to highlight the whole block of code that you copy and paste just now, save it as a method instead, or refactor it as a method instead. Okay, and after that you can just call that method. Okay, and if there's a parameter need to be passed or returned and so on, okay, you can do that. Okay, so the next exercise is just to validate the student informations. And the last exercise is quite interesting. Remember I mentioned just now, there's a button, save changes button. Okay, if you click, it's supposed to save any changes back into the database. Yeah, now you're going to do that in the exercise 3. Yeah, so you're going to add the code to the button. Okay, remember there's an additional step that you have to do. Yeah, you have to go to SAML file, okay, like the one that I mentioned just now. In the SAML tagging, okay, you have to go to that button. Okay, you have to add some code so it knows if there's a button click, it will go to the certain method. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to let you do your exercise. Just give me one moment. I'm going to